Hello everyone, my name is Ziamaro and welcome to Battlerite Sage. Let's talk about toxicity. Oh man, I was a little unsure about covering this because there's always that worry that what you say may add to the problem. For those of you who are familiar with Overwatch, there's been this huge rise of toxicity there recently. And I don't think people actually realise it, but it has been caused by people trying to solve the problem. Blizzard have been banning famous one-tricks while they're streaming repeatedly over the last few months. And not only that, there have been some high-profile players, most famously the captain of the USA Overwatch team, writing or speaking at length about how one-tricks or some other group of players ruined the game. I'm sure they did this with good intentions because being uncooperative is toxic. But what actually happened is the masses suddenly felt justified in verbally abusing people who play in a way they deem toxic. And hey, it's cool because Blizzard and a whole host of professional players agree with me. But here's the problem. Toxicity comes in many forms. Being uncooperative is toxic behavior, sure, but so is verbally abusing teammates for not playing the way you're supposed to. I was doing a little research on toxic behavior before making this video and I stumbled across an article on lifebuzz.com. It's one of those annoying articles that spans multiple pages for no apparent reason and it's littered with Tumblr-esque pictures to illustrate each point, but it actually has a whole list of toxic behaviors that I'd never even thought about. Being verbally abusive or uncooperative in a team game are obvious toxic behaviors, but there's a whole host of things that you may not initially think of as toxic, but really do add to a toxic environment. Here's an interesting one. Acting like you're always the victim. Why do I always get that guy who has never played Varesh until today on my team? Even if you don't say it out loud, it's definitely a toxic mentality to have. And what about this? Needing constant validation. And I know I'm guilty of this one. I might mess up a bunch of abilities and then apologise profusely for losing us the round. I'd never really thought of it this way before, but what I'm actually looking for is for someone to say, don't worry, it's fine. And okay, it's better than turning around and blaming someone else for my mistakes, but it can get exhausting to be around for too long. The article is actually more about self-improvement in your personal life, but it got me thinking, we can actually be contributing to a toxic environment without even realising it. The problem is a lot more far-reaching than simply being cruel to each other. Enough hippie shit for a second. No, cruelty isn't the only form of toxic behaviour, but it certainly is the most abrasive. And when most of us say toxic, we usually mean people being cruel to each other. So what can we actually do about it? Honestly, not much. I go through phases where I feel like calling someone out on being toxic is helpful, but in reality, I don't think it's going to change the way someone behaves. If anything, it might have the opposite result. And this is actually a known phenomenon and it's called the backfire effect. SciShow Psych actually did a really great video called Why You Can't Win an Argument on the Internet. So I'll put a link to that for you in a card or something because it's a really good watch. There probably is a way to phrase things to sway someone's opinion, but most of us, myself included, aren't psychologists. So there's always a good chance you're doing more harm than good when you call someone out on it. So us non-psychologists, what can we do about it? Well, back to the hippie shit for a second. Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's my personal tactic. I try to behave in a way that I'd like to see others behave. And that includes being polite, being a graceful loser, congratulating someone on a good play, or reassuring them when they mess up. And more recently, I've avoided getting on my high horse when people are being dicks to each other. I'm usually pretty polite, but one time I can be a bit outspoken is when I see people being rude to each other. It really winds me up and I'll call people out on it, but really, that's kind of toxic in its own right. We actually have a really good community in Battlerite. The amount of times you'll see people type GG when they lose or wait before attacking when they see the enemy has an AFK is actually astounding. And you guys are what makes this community a really great place to be. There is no quick fix to toxicity, and a lot of attempts to help seem to just make things worse. So let's just do the one thing that we know helps. Be the teammate you wish you always had, be a good sport when you lose, and just ignore the toxic players. It may feel gratifying to stand up to a bully on the internet, but think about it this way. We're social animals. If what we're saying literally gets no response from people, we're pretty likely to rethink our actions because deep down we all want the acceptance of our peers. So just don't get wrapped up in the toxicity and just try to enjoy the game for what it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please feel free to subscribe for more Battlerite guides, news and discussion. Until next time, thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.